Imagine this scene. A dark room, silence so thick it makes your ears ring, and suddenly a scream, not human, but inhuman, piercing. What is happening? A cross is raised in the priest's hand. Demons scream as if they were burning with fire. When a few drops of holy water fall on them, they howl as if they had been touched by the heat of a burning furnace. One simple gesture, the sign of the cross, and all their power crumbles. Sounds like a legend from centuries ago, right? Yet it is happening today. Exorcists around the world, including Father Dan Rehill from the United States, have seen with their own eyes how evil reacts to these sacred signs. This is not a fairy tale. These are not religious trinkets. They are real spiritual weapons that God has given to His children. And today we will show you why demons are terrified of these things and how you can use them in your daily life to protect your soul. Be sober, be vigilant. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. These words of St. Peter are not a metaphor for children or a poetic comparison. They are a real warning that the Church has been repeating for centuries because evil never sleeps. Exorcist Father Dan Rehill, who has seen demons at work face to face, emphasizes that they are afraid of very specific things, and what for us may be a simple gesture, the sign of the cross or a drop of holy water, is like a thunderbolt for them. Demons are not fairy tale creatures with horns. They are intelligent beings who hate man because man was created in the image of God. That is why St. Peter warns against spiritual slumber, because when a person begins to treat faith as a tradition or an ornament, he enters the realm of greatest risk. Then he becomes easy prey. Father Rehill is clear. Each of us is part of a spiritual battle. Even if we pretend not to see it, and if we do not reach for the weapons that God gives us, we remain defenseless. That is why demons try to convince people that the sign of the cross is just a gesture and holy water is just a magic prop for old ladies in church. Because if we really believed in their power, hell would have far fewer victims. This is where the crux of the matter begins. It is not about fear, but about awareness. Because those who know that a lion is roaring outside their door do not leave their house unlocked, and those who know that a demon lurks behind every sin do not disregard the signs that can stop it. The cross is not a wall decoration, a piece of jewelry, or a cultural element. It's the standard of Christ's victory, a sign before which hell trembles. Exorcists talk about situations where the mere raising of a crucifix caused possessed people to recoil in terror, and demons screamed, "Get that away from me, it burns me." These are not metaphors, they are real reactions, testimonies from people who have seen with their own eyes how the spirits of darkness lose their power in the face of the sign of salvation. Father Dan Rehill recalled exorcisms during which the demon couldn't even look at the cross. It would turn its head away, groan, and when the priest placed the crucifix on the possessed person's forehead, the body would immediately go into convulsions. Why? Because the cross contains the full power of Christ's passion, death, and resurrection. For demons, it's not a piece of wood, but a reminder of the ultimate defeat they suffered on Golgotha. But here's something that applies to each of us. The cross works not only in the hands of an exorcist. An ordinary believer who makes the sign of the cross with faith uses the same power. How many times have we mechanically traced it on our foreheads before a meal, before a journey, before bed? And how many of us have paused even once to realize that real defense is hidden in this simple gesture? When you make the sign of the cross consciously, it's as if you're saying, "I belong to Christ. There is no place for evil here." Exorcists repeat that demons see a spiritual reality that we don't. For us, the cross is a gesture. For them, it's like a burning torch that illuminates the darkness. That's why they hate this sign so much. In daily life, we can use it not only in church. It's worthwhile to start the day with the sign of the cross, to make it over our children when they leave the house. You can make the sign of the cross on a door, a window, or over a workplace. This is not an exaggeration or magic. It's the conscious use of the gift God gave us. Think about it. If demons flee from this gesture during an exorcism, how much power does it have in daily life when you use it with faith? Perhaps it's the simplest means that are the most powerful protection. And that's why hell tries to convince the world that the sign of the cross is an anachronism. If the cross is a standard of victory, then holy water is like a fire that demons cannot endure. Exorcists repeat, when a priest sprinkles a possessed person with holy water, the reaction is immediate. The body begins to convulse and a scream is heard. It burns. Stop. Notice it's just regular water that we pour into a glass. But when it is blessed in the name of God, it becomes something that hell cannot bear. Father Rehill recalls stories in which demons not only shrieked, but actually hissed like animals when they felt drops of holy water. One exorcist recounted that a demon howled, "It's fire, it burns." Even though the possessed person's body had no wounds, something that is a sign of blessing and peace for a human being is a corrosive fire for an evil spirit that cannot be extinguished. But holy water is not served for the church alone. Every believer can use it in their daily life. Few people remember that the church encourages taking holy water home. You can sprinkle your home with it to place it under God's protection. You can make the sign of the cross over your children before they go to bed. Or you can simply dip your fingers in it and make the sign of the cross before you leave for work. This is not a superstition. It is a practice that Christians have used for centuries. Imagine you enter your apartment and make the sign of the cross with holy water by the door. It's like setting up a spiritual shield, a sign that this house belongs to God and not to evil. How many people experience anxiety, bad dreams, a sense of a heavy atmosphere in their home? And all it would take is a moment of prayer and the use of this simplest of weapons. Holy water is not magic and not an amulet. It is a sacramental, a visible sign of an invisible grace. That's why it works not mechanically but by the power of faith and the prayer of the church. When a person uses it consciously, it's as if they are saying to the demon, "You have no right to enter here." And then even the greatest darkness must retreat. At first glance, it's just a small piece of metal worn on a chain around the neck or kept in a pocket. But for centuries, the St. Benedict medal has been considered one of the most powerful spiritual shields against evil. Why? Because it's no ordinary ornament. It is engraved with an exorcistic prayer, ancient invocations that directly reference Christ's victory over Satan. Demons know this sign and react to it like a seal that forbids them from approaching. Exorcists have repeatedly stated that the St. Benedict medal provokes rage in demons. Father Rehill recalled situations where during an exorcism, a demon would shriek, "Take that away, it burns me." When the metal was brought near, the person being afflicted. It becomes clear then for the evil spirit this is not a piece of metal but a real threat, because it symbolizes the presence of God and the power of the church's prayer. But you don't have to be an exorcist to use this protection. Any believer can wear the medal. There are testimonies from people who avoided tragedy because of it. A certain driver recounted that just before an accident, his medal's chain suddenly broke. At that very moment, a car coming from the opposite direction unexpectedly swerved, and a head-on collision was avoided. Was it a coincidence, or a sign that God intervened through this holy symbol? Another woman confessed that wearing the medal helped her stay sober because every time she reached for a drink, she felt a spiritual warning and put it down. How can you use the medal in daily life? The simplest way is by wearing it around your neck, but you can also place it in your home, in your car, sew it into a child's clothing, or place it under a sick person's pillow. This is not magic. It's a sign that we surrender our lives in space to Christ through the intercession of St. Benedict, the great vanquisher of evil spirits. In a world full of temptations and threats, the medal serves as a reminder we are not alone. Anyone who wears it with faith carries a shield that reminds hell that Christ has already triumphed. And that victory continues to work here and now. The Rosary. How many times has it been dismissed as a prayer for old women or boring repetition of Hail Marys? Yet for hell, it is one of the most dangerous weapons in existence. St. Padre Pio said directly, "The Rosary is our weapon for these times." He didn't say this as a poetic image, but as a man who fought spiritual battles his entire life and knew that this very prayer breaks the chains that bind souls. Exorcists say that during the praying of the Rosary, demons go into a frenzy. They howl just to interrupt the next Hail Mary. Why? Because every time the name of Mary is spoken, it reminds them of the one who crushed her pride with her humility. It is she, the Mother of Christ, who received a special power of intercession from God. When someone recites the rosary, it's as if they are summoning the heavenly army itself to battle with Mary at the lead. But there's an even deeper secret here. The rosary not only changes external situations, but most importantly, the heart of the person who prays. The repeated words begin to shape the soul, purify thoughts, and bring peace. A person immersed in the rosary becomes less susceptible to temptation, because a quietness is born within them that a demon cannot stand. That's why Padre Pio never parted with his rosary, repeating, "This is my weapon." Think of the great power this prayer has, since all of hell hates it so much. And what a great blessing it is for an ordinary person, a mother, a father, a grandparent, a young man, that they can reach for this sword at any moment. You don't need special circumstances, you don't need to be a priest. All you need to do is take the rosary out of your pocket and start to pray, and in that moment, your soul becomes unconquerable for evil. The rosary is not a car mirror decoration or a First Communion souvenir. It is Mary's sword that truly cuts through the darkness. Anyone who takes it in his hand with faith stands in the ranks of the army that demons fear the most. It must be said clearly and without mincing words. The cross, holy water, the rosary, the Saint Benedict medal, these are not magic amulets. By themselves, they have no power. If a person lives in sin, turns away from God, and treats these things as a protective gadget, they are deceiving themselves. Demons are not afraid of metal, wood, or drops of water. They are afraid of God's grace, which works through these signs when a person truly lives in friendship with God. Exorcists have repeatedly warned. It happened that possessed people wore crosses around their necks, yet evil raged within them. Why? Because it's not about the object itself. If there is no faith in the heart, if someone persists in grave sin, then even holy signs lose their power. They act as dead ornaments, not as a spiritual weapon. It's a bit like someone holding medicine in their hand but never swallowing it. The pill itself won't change anything if you don't allow it to start working inside you. It's the same with sacramentals. The cross, holy water, the rosary or the medal are effective only when they are connected with a life in sanctifying grace with prayer and with the sacraments. This is why the Church always emphasizes it is not magic but faith. These are not talismans but tools that lead to God. Without a relationship with Him, they don't work. And if someone tries to treat them as magical shields, they risk disappointment and mockery from demons who see that there is no true light in their heart. However, this warning is not meant to discourage, but to lead to the most important conclusion. Do you want these things to truly protect your life? Start with confession, with the Eucharist, with prayer, because only then do the cross, the rosary, the metal, or holy water become like a blazing armor that no demon can pierce. Ultimately, none of these things, the cross, the rosary, holy water, or the Saint Benedict medal, will work without a foundation. True protection begins in the heart of a person who lives in grace. It's the sacraments, daily prayer, and the decision to belong to God that make these signs a weapon, not an ornament. Father Dan Branhill spoke about two people from his ministry. The first was Maria, a woman who struggled with severe temptations and torment for years. When she returned to confession, started attending daily mass, and prayed the rosary, her life changed. The evil that had previously dominated her home withdrew. She later said, "It wasn't the medals or the images that saved me, but Jesus who came to me in the sacraments." The second example was Jonathan, a young man who fell into the world of occultism and games with demons. He went to an exorcist, but only when he decided to break with sin and receive the sacraments did he begin to experience freedom. The cross and holy water were important, but they worked because his heart was open to grace. Without that, they would have been just signs. This is the key. The sacraments are the source of power. Confession closes the door to evil. The Eucharist feeds the soul with the very life of God, and daily prayer allows a person to live in God's presence. Only then can you see how all these holy weapons begin to shine with their full splendor, because they are no longer just symbols. They are an extension of Christ's victory in the life of the believer. And here lies the truth that hell fears. A person living in grace does not have to be afraid of demons. They may experience struggles, temptations, and attacks, but they know they are protected because God never leaves his children alone. And every cross, rosary, metal, and drop of holy water then becomes a reminder of that presence and power. Finally, everything we've talked about, the cross, holy water, the Saint Benedict medal, the rosary, the sacraments, only works when you live in grace, when your heart belongs to Christ. Each of these signs is powerful, but their power is revealed when combined with a living faith, daily prayer, and the sacraments. Remember Father Dan Rahill's words, which should become your motto. Place the cross in your heart, and the devil will have no access. This is not a poetic image, it's a truth thousands of believers have experienced in their lives. When you live in grace, your soul becomes a fortress that no darkness can conquer. Every sacramental sign, every prayer, every act of faith is another brick in that spiritual fortress. So make a decision today. Start a daily practice. Wear a cross, use holy water, pray the rosary, carry a Saint Benedict medal with you, and make use of the sacraments. Don't wait for a threat to appear. Arm yourself now. Your spiritual peace and the protection of your family start with you. If this message has touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future messages of power and hope. And write these words in the comments: Lord, I surrender my heart to you and place it under your protection. This is more than a comment. It is your public act of faith and a prayer of protection that can inspire others to also entrust their lives to God. Place the cross in your heart today, and nothing evil will be able to touch.